The Metropolitan Opera House glitters with Manhattan's finest when Park Ji-hoon first notices her across the crowded ballroom. A Nigerian woman in an emerald gown sits alone near the ornate windows, completely absorbed in sketching something in a worn leather journal, utterly unaware that conversations around her have shifted to curious whispers. The art world knows her immediately. Neema, the critically acclaimed artist whose latest exhibition has been breaking attendance records at the Whitney Museum for 3 consecutive months. Ji-hoon doesn't hesitate. He crosses the polished floor with quiet determination and settles into the chair beside her without asking permission. "Excuse me," she says, not looking up from her sketch. "This seat happens to be exactly where I need it to be." His English carries the precise articulation of someone educated abroad, with just enough Korean accent to make it distinctive. "You're working on the commission piece for the Cultural Center. The one about displacement and belonging." Now she looks at him. Dark brown eyes, more penetrating than any photograph has captured, and a guarded expression that suggests she's heard every pickup line wealth can manufacture. "How could you possibly know that?" He gestures toward her open journal, where quick charcoal strokes form the outline of figures caught between worlds. "The way you're capturing the space between cultures, it's not just art. It's autobiography. You create pieces about finding home in foreign places like you understand what it means to belong nowhere and everywhere simultaneously." Her breath catches. No one has looked over her shoulder in years. Gallery owners, critics, collectors. They see only the finished paintings hanging under carefully positioned lights. But this stranger has glimpsed her raw process, the vulnerable uncertainty before polish and professional presentation. "Perhaps you're the one searching for home," she says quietly, studying him more carefully now. The observation lands with unexpected accuracy. In this moment, surrounded by New York's glittering elite, Ji-hoon feels something he's never experienced. The absolute certainty that he has found what he's been searching for. Not a place but a person. The noise around them fades. The responsibilities of his family's technology empire become distant concerns. All that exists is this woman whose presence seems to unlock something in his chest he didn't realize had been closed. "Park Ji-hoon," he says, extending his hand. "I know exactly who you are," she replies, taking it. The simple contact sends electricity through both of them. "Neema Odiambo. The question is whether you understand what you're starting." Before she can elaborate, camera flashes explode around them like lightning. A reporter's voice cuts through the sudden chaos. "Mr. Park, is this your mysterious girlfriend? Is the Korean tech press about to report an international romance?" Neema withdraws her hand quickly, alarm crossing her features. But Ji-hoon doesn't flinch, doesn't release her gaze, doesn't let the intrusion shatter this moment that has already changed both their lives. "Some connections," he says softly, meant only for her, "are worth any complication that follows." The crowd presses closer, questions flying like arrows. Neema's assistant materializes with practiced efficiency, already calculating damage control. But Ji-hoon remains seated, perfectly composed in the storm's eye, watching the woman whose presence has just made his carefully structured world beautifully, impossibly complex. The cameras keep rolling but neither moves. Two people who have just discovered that sometimes destiny announces itself in the most public, most inconvenient, most undeniable way possible. And when love crosses continents and challenges expectations, every choice becomes a risk worth taking. If this story of courage and connection moved you, subscribe to join the journey. Because some love stories deserve to be shared across all borders. The headlines hit before Neema's studio assistant arrives with coffee. Her phone vibrates incessantly on the paint-splattered worktable of her Williamsburg loft, notifications flooding faster than she can dismiss them. "Mystery artist captivates Korean tech heir," screams page 6. "International romance sparks at charity event," declares the art section of the Times. Maya bursts through the door without knocking. Her box braids swinging and her burgundy jumpsuit slightly askew. "Have you seen what's happening online? Because the internet has definitely seen you." "We just talked," Neema protests, though the memory of Ji-hoon's intense focus makes her stomach flutter. It was a conversation at a charity gala. People have conversations. People don't usually have conversations that trend on 3 continents, Maya retorts, scrolling through article after article on her tablet. Do you understand who he is? Park Ji-hoon isn't just wealthy. He's heir to Park Technologies, one of South Korea's most innovative companies. His mother practically revolutionized Seoul's tech district. And according to Forbes, his family is worth approximately $900 million. The number hits Neema like ice water. 900 million. She'd known he was affluent. His custom suit and understated watch had telegraphed wealth, but she hadn't grasped the scale. Her own success, impressive by artistic standards, suddenly feels microscopic. There's more, Maya continues, her voice dropping. The Korean business press is calling it unprecedented. Apparently, he's never been photographed with a woman before. His mother gives interviews about suitable marriages and family legacy, but he's remained completely unattached until last night. Neema sinks into her favorite armchair, the worn velvet seat where she'd sketched her first exhibition concept 5 years ago. Everything feels surreal. The photographs of her and Ji-hoon gazing at each other, the speculation about their whirlwind connection, the breathless commentary about crossing cultural boundaries. We talked for maybe half an hour, she says weakly. 30 minutes that apparently changed both your lives, Maya observes, though her tone is gentler now. Neema, I've seen you interact with collectors, museum directors, even that disaster with the gallery owner's son. You never looked at any of them the way you're looking at him in these photos. It's true, though admitting it feels dangerous. Something had shifted when Ji-hoon sat beside her. Something deeper than attraction or intrigue. When he'd spoken about belonging nowhere and everywhere, it felt like he was articulating thoughts she'd never managed to express in words, only in paint and charcoal. Her phone rings. Unknown international number. Don't answer that, Maya warns. But Neema is already accepting the call. Miss Odiambo. The voice is professional, courteous, distinctly Korean. This is Kim Seo-yeon, executive assistant to Park Technologies. Mr. Park Ji-hoon has asked me to contact you regarding the media attention from last night's event. I see. Neema keeps her voice neutral, though her heart pounds. And what would Mr. Park like me to know? He wishes to apologize for any disruption the coverage may cause you. He also wondered if you might be available for lunch today. Somewhere private where you can speak without cameras. Maya is making frantic negative gestures, but Neema finds herself saying, where and when? There's a small Ethiopian restaurant in Queens, Addis Kitchen. 1 o'clock. Mr. Park will be in the private dining area. After she disconnects, Maya stares at her in dismay. You're actually going to meet him again. I need to know if what I felt was real, Neema admits. 30 minutes shouldn't be enough to turn someone's world upside down, but... She gestures helplessly at the photo still blazing on Maya's screen. Look at us. Look at how we're looking at each other. In the images, she and Ji-hoon appear completely absorbed in one another, oblivious to the camera flashes and curious observers. There's something in his expression, vulnerability beneath the confidence, recognition beneath the composure, that makes her chest tighten with possibility. What if this is bigger than both of us? Neema asks quietly. Maya studies her friend's face, noting the hope and apprehension warring in her dark eyes. Then you'd better wear something that photographs well, because something tells me this lunch is going to make headlines too. But as Neema selects her outfit, a rust-colored wrap dress that complements her deep brown skin, she doesn't know that Park Ji-hoon is already on a flight from Seoul to New York, carrying documents that could destroy any romance before it truly begins. The private dining room at Addis Kitchen feels like sanctuary from the outside world's chaos. Rich tapestries hang on exposed brick walls, and the air carries the comforting aromas of berbera and injera. Ji-hoon arrives first, choosing a seat facing the door, a habit developed from years of board meetings where anticipating who enters can mean the difference between success and corporate disaster. When Neema appears in the doorway wearing rust and gold that makes her skin glow like warm earth, time seems to slow. She moves with quiet confidence, but he notices the way her fingers adjust her leather bag's strap, a small tell that betrays her nervousness. "Thank you for coming," he says, rising to greet her. The formal politeness feels inadequate for the electricity crackling between them. "Thank you for the Ethiopian restaurant," she replies, settling into the chair across from him. "It was thoughtful. My grandmother is from Addis Ababa." "I know," he says, then quickly adds, "I read the profile in Art Forum. The one where you discussed how your heritage influences your work. Kenyan father, Ethiopian grandmother, childhood split between Nairobi and New York." She smiles slightly. "You did your research. I wanted to understand the woman whose art made me feel less alone in a crowded room long before we met." The admission hangs between them, honest and vulnerable. "I've been following your exhibitions for 2 years. The way you explore themes of cultural identity, the space between belonging and displacement, it speaks to something I've never been able to articulate." The server arrives with traditional Ethiopian dishes, doro wat, kitfo, tibs, providing a momentary buffer against the intensity. "Your friend seemed worried about this meeting," Ji-hoon observes as they sample the food. "Maya is protective. She's seen me make questionable decisions before." Neema's voice is matter-of-fact, but he senses deeper wounds. "She's also done her research. Apparently, you're quite the enigma in tech circles." Enigma implies deliberate mystery. I prefer private. Is there a difference? He considers this, appreciating her directness. Most people in his world communicate through elaborate indirection, dancing around meaning rather than confronting it. Privacy is choosing what to share. Mystery is letting others fill the blanks with their assumptions. And what assumptions have people made about you? That I'm cold, calculating, that I view relationships as strategic alliances. His fingers trace the rim of his glass. Perhaps they're not entirely wrong. But perhaps they're not entirely right either, Neema suggests gently. Something in her tone, understanding rather than judgment, makes him look up sharply. "What makes you say that? Last night when you sat beside me, you didn't introduce yourself first. You didn't mention your company or your achievements. You talked about my art, about belonging, about the courage to create from a place of vulnerability. That's not how calculated people behave." The observation strikes deeply. In a lifetime of strategic interactions, she's identified something essentially true about that moment. His abandonment of all professional protocol in favor of genuine connection. "I felt like I'd been searching for that conversation my entire life without realizing it," he admits quietly. "Like you'd been waiting for someone who understood," she finishes. Their eyes meet across the small table, and the recognition is mutual, profound, terrifying. Neither has ever experienced this level of immediate understanding. "My mother will want to meet you," Ji-hoon says eventually. "Will she approve?" Approval isn't her primary concern. Control is. The honesty in his voice tells Neema everything she needs to know about park hygiene. "And you? Do you always do what your mother expects?" "Until recently, yes." He doesn't answer directly. Instead, he reaches into his jacket and pulls out a slim exhibition catalog from her last show. The pages are already marked with careful notes. "I visited your exhibition 3 times. The piece about displacement, the woman standing between 2 shores, neither fully belonging to either. I kept returning to it." Neema's breath catches. The painting he's referencing is deeply personal, exploring her own experience of being too Kenyan for America, too American for Kenya, too Nigerian for the art world's Eurocentric standards, yet never quite fitting the narrow definitions others tried to impose. "That piece was about choosing to belong to yourself when no place claims you," she says carefully. "What if someone offered you a place that wasn't about geography?" The question hangs like a bridge, one that could lead to extraordinary happiness or devastating heartbreak. Neema knows that crossing it will change everything, thrust her into a world of international scrutiny, family expectations, cultural complexities she can barely imagine. But when she looks into Ji-hoon's eyes, she sees something that makes the risk worthwhile. A man who has spent his entire life meeting expectations, finally brave enough to reach for what his heart actually wants. "I might be willing to find out," she says softly. His smile transforms his entire face, making him appear younger, more hopeful, luminously happy. "Then we should probably discuss logistics." "Logistics? My mother lands at JFK in 2 hours." Neema's coffee cup freezes halfway to her lips as she realizes this quiet lunch may have been the last peaceful moment they'll share for a very long time. Park Ji-hoon emerges from first class at JFK like a force of nature dressed in Dior. At 60, she carries herself with the regal bearing of someone accustomed to commanding boardrooms and receiving immediate deference. Her silver-streaked hair is swept into an immaculate chignon, and her jade earrings, a gift from Korea's former president, catch the terminal's lights like warnings. Kim So-eun waits beside the black sedan, her expression carefully neutral despite the anxiety churning in her stomach. As Ji-hoon's executive assistant and confidant, she's witnessed Ji-hoon's strategic brilliance countless times, but never when her son's personal happiness was adequate. Ji-hoon's tone is crisp, businesslike. "Bring me current on the situation." As the sedan navigates Manhattan traffic, Seo-yeon provides a careful summary. The charity gala encounter, the media explosion, the lunch meeting currently happening in Queens. Ji-hoon listens in silence, her manicured fingers drumming against her Bottega Veneta handbag. "Show me the photographs again." Seo-yeon reluctantly hands over her tablet, displaying the images that have set the international gossip world ablaze. Ji-hoon studies each photo with the intensity of a chess master analyzing opponent moves, noting the way her son gazes at Neema, the obvious chemistry between them, the complete abandonment of his usual reserved public persona. "This is more concerning than I anticipated," she murmurs. "Ma'am, he's falling in love. Look at his expression." "I see it," Ji-hoon says quietly. "That's exactly what worries me." The comparison she doesn't voice hangs heavy in the car. Her younger son, Min-jae, dead at 24, officially from a motorcycle accident, privately from the reckless choices that love had driven him to make. She's already lost one son to the dangerous intoxication of romance. She won't lose another. What do we know about her? Neema Odhiambo, age 30, born in Nairobi to a Kenyan father and Somali mother. Raised between Kenya and New York after her father's consulting work brought the family to America when she was 12. Grandmother is Ethiopian, and she spent summers in Addis Ababa growing up. Continue. Full scholarship to Rhode Island School of Design, graduated with honors. Worked various jobs while establishing her artistic career. Gallery assistant, art teacher, freelance illustrator. Her first exhibition took 3 years to secure after numerous rejections. Ji-hoon nods approvingly. Persistence and talent are admirable qualities. But the relief in her expression fades as Seo-yeon continues. She's been extraordinarily successful. 3 major exhibitions in prestigious galleries, numerous awards, estimated net worth around $3 million. But there are complications. Such as, she's very private about her personal life, but our investigators found records of a previous serious relationship with Marcus Williams, an architect in Brooklyn. The relationship ended 2 years ago under circumstances that caused significant talk in art circles. What kind of circumstances? Rumors of infidelity on his part. Speculation about trust issues on hers. Multiple sources suggest she's been deliberately avoiding serious relationships since, focusing entirely on her career. Ji-hoon processes this information like a general studying battlefield intelligence. A woman wounded by betrayal might be more susceptible to genuine devotion, or more likely to sabotage a promising relationship out of fear. Either scenario presents opportunities. And her current financial situation. Stable but not extravagant. She owns a loft in Williamsburg with a mortgage, drives a reliable hybrid, donates to arts education programs. No obvious gold digger behaviors, but a woman making millions might still be attracted to a man worth hundreds of millions, Ji-hoon finishes. especially if he can provide the security and status her previous relationship failed to offer. Mrs. Park, with respect, the photograph suggests genuine affection on both sides. Perhaps this relationship could what? Hyejine's voice cuts like winter wind. Could provide my son with the fairy tale romance he deserves. Could give me grandchildren who don't share our heritage. Could create a media spectacle that overshadows every business decision for the rest of his career. So-yeon falls silent. She's known Hyejin for 12 years and recognizes the tone that precedes her most ruthless strategic maneuvers. Ji-hoon has responsibilities that transcend personal happiness. Hyejin continues. Park Technologies employs 35,000 people worldwide. Our family's choices affect thousands of investors, hundreds of partners, entire communities that depend on our innovation. I will not allow an infatuation to jeopardize that legacy. And if Ji-hoon refuses to end the relationship, Hyejin's smile is sharp as a blade. Then I'll need to have a conversation with Miss Odiambo directly. The sedan pulls up to the Park family's Manhattan penthouse, and Hyejin steps onto the sidewalk with the confidence of someone who has never lost a battle when the stakes truly mattered. She doesn't know that at this moment, her son is holding Neema's hand across a table in Queens, making promises about fighting for their connection no matter what obstacles arise. She doesn't know that Neema has already survived poverty, racism, artistic rejection, and romantic betrayal, experiences that have forged steel beneath her gentle exterior. But Hyejin is about to discover that some love stories are strong enough to survive even the most formidable opposition. The war for Ji-hoon's heart is about to begin, and neither woman is prepared to surrender without revealing exactly how far she's willing to go. Hyejin doesn't wait for formal introductions. She appears at Addis' kitchen like an elegant storm, her heels clicking against the hardwood with military precision. The Ethiopian owner recognizes her immediately. Everyone in international business knows Park Hyejin, and rushes to escort her to the private dining room where Ji-hoon and Neema sit in intimate. Mother. Ji-hoon rises quickly, his body language shifting to practiced formality. I wasn't expecting you until this evening. Clearly. Hyejin's gaze sweeps the scene, their hands linked across the table, the evident comfort between them, her son's relaxed posture that she hasn't witnessed in years. Miss Odiambo, I presume. Neema stands gracefully, extending her hand for a polite shake. Mrs. Park, it's a pleasure to meet you. Hyejin takes the offered hand, her grip firm and assessing. She's evaluating everything. Neema's confident posture, her thoughtful jewelry choices, the way she meets Hyejin's scrutinizing gaze without flinching. The younger woman is more formidable than the photograph suggested. Please join us, Ji-hoon says, though tension radiates from every line of his body. I prefer to speak with Miss Odiambo privately first, Hyejin replies. Ji-hoon, perhaps you could arrange for transportation back to the penthouse. It's not a request. Ji-hoon recognizes the tone that has commanded corporate negotiations for decades, and his jaw tightens. Mother, I don't think. It's all right, Neema interrupts gently. Your mother and I should talk. The moment Ji-hoon reluctantly steps away, Hyejin settles into his vacated chair like a queen claiming territory. The server, sensing the shift in atmosphere, quickly refreshes their tea and retreats. You're quite striking, Hyejin begins, her tone conversational but her eyes calculating. I can see why my son is attracted to you. Thank you, Neema replies carefully. Beauty is subjective, of course, particularly under the pressures that come with being associated with our family. Hyejin sips her tea delicately. Tell me, Miss Odiambo, what do you understand about Korean business culture? I imagine it's quite different from the American art world. Indeed. In Korea, family reputation affects every transaction, every partnership, every opportunity. When my son eventually marries, and he will marry as heir to our company, his wife becomes part of our brand. Her background, her behavior, her cultural compatibility with our shareholders and business partners, all of it reflects on Park Technologies. Neema keeps her expression neutral, though she feels the subtle violence of Ji-hoon's words. I see. Do you? Because I'm not certain you understand the level of scrutiny that would accompany a serious relationship with Ji-hoon. The Korean media can be particularly harsh toward foreign women who appear to be social climbing. The accusation hangs in the air. Neema sets down her teacup with deliberate calm, her voice steady. Mrs. Park, I've built my career independently. I don't need your son's money or status. Need and want are different things, Ji-hoon observes. And even successful women can be tempted by the lifestyle that $900 million can provide. Is that what you think this is? Temptation by luxury? I think you're an intelligent woman who recognized an opportunity last night and took it skillfully. I also think you're unprepared for what pursuing that opportunity will cost you. Ji-hoon reaches into her handbag and withdraws a tablet, sliding it across the table to display a collection of articles and social media posts that have appeared in the past 24 hours. The headlines are brutal. Nigerian artist targets Korean heir. Calculated romance or genuine connection. Cultural divide or publicity stunt. Neema's stomach churns as she scrolls through the xenophobic and racist commentary, the speculation about her motives, the dissection of her background and finances. The cruelty of anonymous voices feels like acid on her skin. This is just the beginning, Ji-hoon says softly. If you continue this relationship, every aspect of your life will be analyzed, criticized, twisted to fit whatever narrative generates attention. Your privacy will disappear. Your reputation will be questioned. Your every public appearance will be scrutinized for evidence that you don't belong in our world. And you think I'll run away to avoid discomfort? Neema says quietly. I think you're human and humans have limits. Neema studies Ji-hoon's face, seeing the calculation beneath the concern. This woman isn't trying to protect her from media harassment. She's wielding it like a weapon. Mrs. Park, I've been poor, orphaned, and rejected more times than I can count. I've survived worse than bad publicity. But have you survived it while watching someone you care about suffer because of you? Because that's what loving my son means. Watching him choose between his family legacy and his personal happiness. Knowing that either choice will cause him pain. The words hit their target. Neema sees the trap being constructed around her emotions. The way Ji-hoon is positioning love itself as harmful. You're asking me to break his heart to save him. I'm asking you to consider whether your presence in his life will ultimately help or harm him. A woman who truly loves him would want what's best for his future. Before Neema can respond, Ji-hoon returns, immediately sensing the tension. Is everything all right? Your mother was just explaining the challenges of international relationships. Neema replies, her voice carefully controlled. Ji-hoon rises smoothly. I've said what needed to be said. Miss Odiambo, I trust you'll consider our conversation carefully. She turns to her son. Ji-hoon, we'll discuss this at home. As Ji-hoon glides away, Ji-hoon sits beside Neema, noting the strain in her expression. What did she say to you? She showed me what loving you will cost. Neema admits quietly. And she looks at him, this man who has somehow become essential to her happiness in less than 2 days, and makes a choice that will reshape both their destinies. I've never backed down from a challenge that mattered. And you, Park Ji-hoon, matter more than I'm comfortable admitting. But as they walk out of the restaurant together, neither notices Ji-hoon's sedan parked across the street, or the private investigator in the passenger seat already making calls to activate the most thorough background investigation money can buy. Maya Mitchell has always possessed an investigative instinct that served her well as an art consultant and Neema's friend. While others accept surface narratives, Maya digs deeper, uncovering the stories behind the stories. Tonight, that instinct is screaming warnings about the Park family. She sits in her Brooklyn office at midnight, surrounded by printouts of Korean business articles, financial reports, and social media posts that paint a complex picture of Ji-hoon's world. The official narrative is pristine: successful heir, devoted son, philanthropic businessman. But Maya has learned to look for gaps in perfect stories, and the Park family history has several significant ones. The most glaring gap is 6 years old and named Park Min-jae. Ji-hoon's younger brother appears in family photos until 2019, then vanishes completely from public records. The official story is simple: tragic motorcycle accident, private funeral, family grief. But Maya's journalist contacts in Seoul tell a different story. Whispers of suicide, a forbidden relationship, a family cover-up that reached the highest levels of Korean society. Her phone buzzes with a text from Neema. "Dinner tomorrow? Need to talk." Maya responds immediately. "My place, 7 p.m. I'm cooking." What she doesn't text is the growing certainty that Neema is walking into dangerous territory, and that Hygiene has already begun constructing traps. Meanwhile, across town in the Park penthouse, Ji-hoon stands on his terrace overlooking Central Park, phone pressed to his ear as he speaks to Seo-yeon in Seoul. "She's planning something. My mother doesn't fly internationally for casual conversations. She came here to end this relationship, and since her initial approach with Neema failed, she'll escalate. What do you want me to do? Find out what she's really afraid of. This isn't just about family reputation or business concerns. There's something else, something that makes the thought of me being happy with Neema genuinely terrifying to her." Seo-yeon is quiet for a moment. When she speaks, her voice is careful. "Ji-hoon, you need to consider the possibility that your mother isn't the villain. Maybe she knows something about love and loss that you don't. Such as, what happened to Min-jae?" The name hits Ji-hoon like a physical blow. His younger brother, dead at 24, officially a victim of reckless driving, but privately a cautionary tale that Hygiene has never stopped telling. Min-jae loved recklessly, chose passion over duty, and paid the ultimate price. "That was different," Ji-hoon says finally. "Was it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like history trying to repeat itself. The heir to Park Technologies falls in love with someone the family deems unsuitable, and Hygiene moves to prevent a tragedy she believes she's already witnessed once." Ji-hoon closes his eyes, remembering Min-jae's infectious laugh, his younger brother's absolute faith in love conquering all obstacles, the way Min-jae had defied their mother's warnings right up until the night he crashed his motorcycle on a rain-slick Seoul highway. Neema isn't going to destroy herself for love. But would you? The question hangs unanswered because Ji-hoon knows the truth that Seo-yeon is too loyal to voice directly. Yes, he would risk everything for Neema. His business empire, his family legacy, his carefully constructed life. All of it feels negotiable in the face of what he felt when she smiled at him. And that, more than any media scandal or cultural clash, is exactly what Hygiene fears most. In her own penthouse bedroom, Hygiene sits at her antique writing desk, composing an encrypted message to her head of security in Seoul. The communication is brief, but its meaning is clear. Activate every resource. Investigate every connection. Find the leverage that will make Neema walk away voluntarily. She's not being cruel, she tells herself. She's being practical. Love is a beautiful luxury that people like Ji-hoon cannot afford. And if Neema truly cares for him, she'll eventually understand that some sacrifices are necessary. Hygiene has made such sacrifices herself. The photograph on her desk shows her 3 decades younger, standing beside a handsome man who isn't her late husband. The man in the photo has kind eyes and an artist's hands, and if circumstances had been different, if family expectations hadn't intervened, he might have been Ji-hoon's father. She touches the glass gently, remembering the choice she made between love and duty, between personal happiness and family legacy. The choice that gave her 2 sons and a business empire, but left her heart permanently scarred. "I won't let you make my mistakes," she whispers to the empty room, though she's not certain whether she's addressing Ji-hoon or Neema. But some mistakes are worth making. And some love stories are strong enough to survive even the most painful family secrets. The private dining room at Daniel feels like a confessional as Neema picks at her perfectly prepared sea base and watches Maya scroll through the disturbing results of her investigation into the Park family. The restaurant's hushed elegance provides privacy for conversations that could reshape lives, and tonight both women sense they're standing at a precipice. "I need you to promise something," Maya says without preamble. "Promise me you'll listen to all of this before reacting." That sounds ominous. It is. Maya slides a thick folder across the white tablecloth. Park Min-jae died 6 years ago, officially in a motorcycle accident. But 3 sources in Seoul, journalists who covered the story, all say the same thing. The crash scene was inconsistent with the police report. Neema opens the folder with trembling hands. Inside are copies of Korean newspaper articles with rough translations, photographs of a mangled motorcycle, accompanying text raising questions about the trajectory, the timing, the absence of skid marks that would indicate an attempt to brake. "Suicide?" Neema asks quietly. "That's what people whispered. But here's where it gets complicated. Min-jae wasn't alone. There was a woman with him, 23 years old, classical musician named Yuki Tanaka. Japanese-Korean, studying at the Seoul Arts Conservatory." Neema's blood chills. "They both died." "No, that's the strange part. She survived. Barely. Spent 2 months in a coma, another year in rehabilitation. But after she recovered, she disappeared completely. No graduation records, no concert performances, no social media presence. It's like she ceased to exist." "People don't just vanish," Neema objects. "They do if someone with enough money and influence wants them to." Maya's expression is grim. "I found one more thing. A wire transfer of 30 million won to an account registered under Yuki Tanaka's name, dated 1 week after she was discharged from the hospital. The implication hangs like poison. Hygiene paid the survivor to disappear, to maintain whatever fiction protected the family's reputation and prevented difficult questions about Min-jae's death." "Maya, why are you telling me this?" "Because Hygiene has already started investigating you. My contacts in the art world say private investigators have been asking questions about your finances, your past relationships, your family history. She's building a file on you, Neema. And based on what she did to Yuki, I don't think she'll stop at paying you to leave quietly." Neema pushes her plate away, appetite completely gone. The thought of professional investigators digging through her life feels violating, but the comparison to Yuki is terrifying. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that Hygiene is a woman who will eliminate anyone who threatens her family's image. Min-jae fell in love with someone she deemed unsuitable, and when he refused to end the relationship, they both ended up dead or disappeared. Now Ji-hoon is following the same pattern. You think she would actually hurt me? I think she would do whatever necessary to protect her surviving son, and that whatever necessary might include things you can't imagine." Maya reaches across the table to squeeze Neema's hand. "I also think you're falling in love with Ji-hoon so fast that you're not thinking clearly about the risks." The words hit home because they're true. 3 days ago, Neema had never heard of Park Ji-hoon. Now, the thought of losing him creates a physical ache that feels dangerously close to dependency. "What would you do if you were me?" "If I thought the man was worth it, if I believed the connection was real and worth fighting for, I'd gather my own ammunition. Hygiene's power comes from information asymmetry. She knows everything about you while you know nothing about her secrets. Level the playing field." "How?" "Find Yuki Tanaka. Find out what really happened 6 years ago and why Hygiene was willing to pay millions to keep it quiet. If you're going to war with the Park family, you need to understand exactly what they're capable of and what they're most afraid of losing." Neema stares out the restaurant's windows at the Manhattan Street scene, watching ordinary people live ordinary lives, unburdened by the complexities of international romance and family vendettas. Part of her envies their simplicity, but a larger part recognizes that she's already chosen her path. Ji-hoon has awakened something she'd thought was permanently damaged by Marcus's betrayal, the capacity to risk everything for connection. "Help me find her," Neema says finally. Maya nods, unsurprised by her friend's decision. "I've already started." But neither woman knows that at this very moment, Ji-hoon is making his own dangerous choice, one that will accelerate Hygiene's timeline and force all their secrets into the light. Ji-hoon makes his decision while standing in his mother's Manhattan penthouse at dawn, watching her methodically review financial reports as if the previous day's emotional confrontations were merely minor inconveniences to be managed. Her composure in the face of his obvious turmoil finally breaks something inside him, not his love for her, but his willingness to subordinate his happiness to her fears. "Mother," he says quietly, "I'm going to see Neema today, and I'm taking her to dinner tomorrow night. Publicly. At Per Se, where we'll certainly be photographed." Hygiene doesn't look up from her papers. "That would be inadvisable. I'm not asking for advice. I'm informing you of my decision." Now she raises her eyes, and the calculation in them sends a chill through him. "Ji-hoon, you're allowing emotion to cloud your judgment. This woman is a distraction you cannot afford. This woman is the first person in 6 years who has made me want to feel anything at all," he says with quiet intensity. "Since Min-jae died, I've been functioning rather than living, meeting every obligation, exceeding every expectation, and feeling absolutely nothing. Neema changed that in 30 minutes. At the mention of Min-jae's name, Hygiene's mask slips momentarily, revealing something raw and desperate. "Your brother made similar declarations about love conquering all obstacles. Do you remember how that ended? Min-jae made different choices. Min-jae defied family expectations for a woman who wasn't worth his devotion, just as you're doing now." The cruelty of reducing Min-jae's death to a cautionary tale about inconvenient love makes Ji-hoon's chest burn with fury. "Don't use his memory as a weapon against my happiness. I'm using his memory to save your life." Hygiene's composure finally cracks, revealing the terror beneath. "Do you think I enjoyed burying one son? Do you think I can survive burying another?" The admission hangs between them, raw and devastating. For the first time, Ji-hoon sees past his mother's strategic maneuvering to the grief-stricken parent underneath, a woman so traumatized by loss that she's willing to sacrifice his happiness to prevent what she perceives as inevitable tragedy. "Mother," he says gently, "I'm not Min-jae, and Neema isn't Yuki." Hygiene goes completely still. "How do you know about Yuki?" "I know enough. I know you paid her to disappear after the accident. I know you've been investigating Neema the same way you investigated Min-jae's girlfriend. And I know you're prepared to destroy anyone who threatens your control over this family." "I protected this family," Hygiene says fiercely. "I protected you from the scandal that would have destroyed everything we've built. Yuki was a liability. Unstable, traumatized, potentially willing to say anything for money or attention. I solved the problem quietly. You silenced a traumatized young woman who'd lost the man she loved. I prevented her from taking you down with her grief." Hygiene rises from her chair, every inch the corporate warrior she's been for 3 decades. "Ji-hoon, you can hate me for the choices I've made, but you cannot ignore their necessity. Park Technologies supports 35,000 employees and their families. Our reputation opens doors throughout Asia that create opportunities for countless people. Your personal happiness, while important to me as your mother, cannot take precedence over those responsibilities. And if I choose Neema anyway," Hygiene's smile is sharp with certainty, "then you'll discover that Miss Odiambo isn't as committed to this romance as you believe. People have limits, son, even people who love you. Push them hard enough, and they'll eventually walk away to protect themselves. The threat is clear, though wrapped in maternal concern. Hygiene will make loving him so painful for Neema that she'll eventually retreat. The strategy that worked with Yuki will be refined and applied with surgical precision." Ji-hoon moves toward the door, then pauses. "Mother, I want you to understand something. If you hurt Neema, if you drive her away through manipulation or threats or any of the tactics you've perfected over the years, you will lose me permanently. Not just my obedience or cooperation, but my presence in your life entirely." "You don't mean that." "I've never meant anything more." His voice carries absolute conviction. "I spent 6 years drowning in guilt over Min-jae's death, convinced that if I'd been a better brother, a more supportive family member, maybe he'd still be alive. But I realize now that Min-jae didn't die because he loved the wrong person. He died because he felt trapped between love and duty and saw no way to honor both. Hye-jin's face is pale, but her expression remains defiant. I refuse to be trapped the same way, Ji-hoon continues. So choose carefully, mother. You can have a son who loves Neema and still respects his family obligations, or you can have no son at all. He leaves Hye-jin standing alone in her perfectly appointed penthouse, surrounded by symbols of power and success that have been her consolation for every personal sacrifice. For the first time in decades, she wonders if the price of protecting her family has been the destruction of everything she was trying to preserve. But Park Hye-jin didn't build an empire by surrendering at the first sign of opposition. And some battles are won not through direct confrontation, but by forcing the enemy to defeat themselves. Neema's phone rings at 5:30 in the morning with a call that will change everything. The voice on the other end is professional, courteous, devastating. Miss Odiambo, this is Dr. Rahman from New York Presbyterian Hospital. We have you listed as the emergency contact for Maya Mitchell. I'm afraid there's been an accident. The subway ride to the hospital passes in a blur of fluorescent tunnel lights and strangers' faces that swim in and out of focus as Neema struggles to process the paramedics' preliminary report. Maya's car collided with a delivery truck at 5 a.m. in Flushing, far from her usual Brooklyn route, under circumstances that make no immediate sense. Ji-hoon meets her in the hospital waiting room, having received her frantic call while preparing for an early board meeting. He takes one look at her stricken face and pulls her into his arms without hesitation, ignoring the stares of other visitors who recognize him from gossip sites. "How is she?" he asks quietly. "Stable but unconscious. Multiple fractures, internal injuries, possible brain trauma." Neema's voice is steady, but her hands shake against his chest. "The police want to talk to me about why she was in Flushing at dawn. Do you know?" Neema pulls back to meet his eyes, and the fear in her expression makes his stomach drop. "She found her, Ji-hoon. She found Yuki." The name hits him like cold water. "What?" "Maya located your brother's girlfriend. Yuki has been living in Queens under a different name, working as a piano teacher in the Korean community. Maya was going to meet her this morning to ask about the accident, about your mother's payment, about what really happened 6 years ago." Ji-hoon's blood turns to ice. "Where is Yuki now?" "Missing. Her landlord says she left during the night with one suitcase. No forwarding address. No explanation." Neema's voice drops to a whisper. "Ji-hoon, this wasn't an accident. Someone wanted to prevent Maya from talking to Yuki, and they were willing to hurt her to make it happen." The implications crash over him like a tidal wave. His mother's quiet efficiency, her absolute certainty that problems can be managed, her network of security personnel and contractors who ask no questions about their assignments. "I have to go," he says suddenly. "Where?" "To confront my mother. To end this before anyone else gets hurt." Neema catches his arm as he turns to leave. "Ji-hoon, wait. If Hye-jin is responsible for this, if she's willing to hurt innocent people to protect her secrets, then confronting her directly puts you at risk too. I can't let her think that threatening the people I care about is acceptable." "Then don't go alone." They stare at each other across the sterile hospital waiting room. Two people who've known each other for 4 days but who have already become essential to each other's survival. The connection that felt like destiny now feels like a liability, making them both vulnerable to a woman who views love as the enemy of family loyalty. "Neema," he says carefully, "I need you to consider the possibility that being with me will continue to put you and the people you love in danger. If my mother is willing to orchestrate Maya's accident to prevent unwanted revelations, what else might she be willing to do? Are you asking me to walk away? I'm asking if you're strong enough to stay." The question hangs like a challenge and a plea, because Ji-hoon knows that loving him means entering a war zone where casualties include anyone who gets too close to family secrets buried for 6 years. Neema thinks about Maya lying unconscious 3 floors above them, about Yuki disappearing into the night, about the photos and investigations and threats that have already begun to reshape her quiet artistic life into something resembling a nightmare. She thinks about Marcus's betrayal 2 years ago and the hard-won independence she's built, about the security she's created through her own success and the privacy she's carefully maintained. But she also thinks about the way Ji-hoon looked at her across that restaurant table, the recognition in his eyes that matched something deep in her soul, the feeling that she'd been unconsciously searching for him her entire life without knowing it. "I'm strong enough," she says firmly. "But I'm not foolish enough to fight Park Ji-hoon without ammunition." Ji-hoon's expression shifts from worry to something resembling admiration as he realizes that the woman he's falling in love with is preparing for war. The ICU waiting room becomes their war council. While Maya remains unconscious, monitored by machines that beep with mechanical regularity, Neema and Ji-hoon forge a partnership that will either save their relationship or destroy them both. Seoyeon arrives within the hour, her usually composed demeanor shaken. She brings a thick envelope, financial records, security footage from the Flushing neighborhood, a series of wire transfers that paint a disturbing picture of Hye-jin's methods. "She's been monitoring both of you since the charity gala," Seoyeon reports quietly, glancing around to ensure they're not overheard. "Tracking your movements, your communications, your schedules." Maya's investigation into Yuki triggered an immediate response. "What kind of response?" Neema asks, though she dreads the answer. Seoyeon opens the envelope and spreads photographs across the small table. They show Maya's car at various locations throughout the week. Outside Neema's loft, parked near the library where she'd been researching Korean business records, stopped at the coffee shop where she'd met with her journalist contacts. "Your friend was more thorough than Hye-jin anticipated," Seoyeon continues. "She found not just Yuki's current identity, but also her medical records from after the accident. Maya discovered something that Hye-jin thought was buried forever." Ji-hoon leans forward. "What?" "Yuki was pregnant when the accident happened. She lost the baby in the crash." The revelation hits like a physical blow. Neema's hand flies to her mouth while Ji-hoon goes completely pale. The tragedy becomes exponentially more complex. Not just the death of his brother and the silencing of a witness, but the loss of a child who would have been Hye-jin's grandchild. "My God," Ji-hoon whispers. "Min-jae was going to be a father." "Hye-jin knew," Seoyeon says grimly. The medical records show she was listed as the emergency contact after Yuki's family disowned her for the pregnancy. Hye-jin made every decision about Yuki's medical care while she was in the coma, including the authorization for the procedures that saved her life. So she wasn't just covering up a scandal, Neema realizes. She was covering up the death of her own grandchild. A grandchild who would have legitimized Min-jae's relationship with Yuki. Ji-hoon's voice carries the weight of profound betrayal. "Who would have made it impossible for my mother to dismiss their love as a youthful mistake? The cruelty of it, using money to silence a grieving mother, erasing not just a relationship but an entire lineage, makes them all sit in stunned silence." Hye-jin's actions weren't just about protecting the family reputation. They were about rewriting history to match her preferred narrative. "Where did Maya get the medical records?" Neema asked. "A nurse who was on duty during Yuki's hospitalization. She kept copies because she suspected something wasn't right about the family's behavior. She never spoke up at the time. Hye-jin can be very persuasive and the nurse needed her job. But when Maya started asking questions, she decided it was time for the truth. And now, Ji-hoon's expression darkens. The nurse called in sick this morning and hasn't been seen since. Her apartment appears to have been vacated in a hurry. Another disappearance. Another witness silenced. Hye-jin's efficiency in eliminating problems is becoming terrifyingly clear. "We need to find Yuki," Neema says. "She's the only person who can verify what really happened, and she's running out of places to hide." "Assuming she's willing to talk," Ji-hoon points out. "My mother's been supporting her for 6 years. That kind of financial dependency creates complicated loyalties. Or complicated resentments," Neema counters. "A woman who's been paid to forget her dead child and disappear from her life might be ready to tell the truth, especially if she realizes that staying quiet puts other people in danger." Seoyeon considers this. "I might be able to help." My firm handles immigration cases, and Yuki's legal status has always been precarious. If Hygiene's payments stopped suddenly, which they would if she felt threatened, Yuki might be desperate enough to accept protection in exchange for testimony. That's assuming we can find her before Hygiene does, Ji-hoon says. We have one advantage, Neema points out. Hygiene doesn't know that we know about the pregnancy. She thinks the only threat is Yuki talking about the accident itself, not about what she lost in it. It's a slim advantage, but it's something. They spend the next hour developing a plan, tracking down a traumatized woman who's been hiding for 6 years, convincing her to risk everything by going public with a story that could destroy one of Korea's most powerful families, all while staying ahead of Hygiene's security network. When visiting hours begin, they take turns sitting with Maya, who remains unconscious but stable. Neema holds her friend's hand and whispers promises about finding the truth, about making sure her sacrifice wasn't in vain. Ji-hoon watches from the doorway, seeing the fierce loyalty that drives the woman he's falling in love with. Neema isn't just beautiful and talented. She's someone who fights for the people she cares about, even when it puts her own safety at risk. She's going to wake up asking about the story, Neema says when she rejoins him in the corridor. Maya doesn't give up on anything, especially when it involves protecting someone she loves. Like you, he observes. Like us, she corrects. Because whether your mother likes it or not, we're in this together now. But as they leave the hospital, neither notices the black sedan that pulls away from the parking garage behind them, or the driver speaking rapidly in Korean into his phone, reporting their every movement to Park Hygiene. Yuki isn't hard to find once they know where to look. Korean immigrant communities in New York are tight-knit networks where everyone knows everyone, and a woman who's been living quietly for 6 years under an assumed name still leaves traces for those determined enough to follow them. The trail leads to a small Catholic church in Flushing where Yuki has been attending early morning mass 3 times a week for the past 3 years. Father Murphy, the elderly priest who conducts services with portions in Korean, remembers her well. A quiet woman who prays with intensity, he tells them in his gentle Irish brogue. She lost someone important. I could see it in her eyes. The kind of grief that never fully heals. She asked me once about forgiveness, whether some losses are too great to move beyond. Neema and Ji-hoon exchange glances across the parish office. The priest's description of Yuki as a woman haunted by loss suggests she blames herself for Min-jae's death, for the accident that took both her lover and her unborn child. Did she mention any family? Any friends who might know where she's gone? Hyun asks. Father Murphy hesitates, clearly torn between pastoral discretion and concern for Yuki's welfare. She spoke of a woman who helped her, who provided support. But lately, she seemed frightened of this person. She asked about sanctuary, about what the church could do to protect someone who needed to tell the truth but was afraid of the consequences. When was this? Ji-hoon asks urgently. 3 days ago. The same day she didn't come to morning mass for the first time in 3 years. The timeline aligns perfectly with Maya's investigation and Hygiene's escalation. Yuki knew the past was catching up, and she'd been preparing to either run or fight. Their next stop is the music school where Yuki had been teaching piano to Korean-American children. The director, Mrs. Kim, is initially reluctant to discuss a former employee, but Ji-hoon's fluent Korean and Neema's gentle persistence eventually convince her to share what she knows. Hannah was an excellent teacher, she says, using Yuki's assumed name. Patient, skilled with difficult students, but she lived like a shadow, like someone afraid of being noticed. She never talked about her past, never joined the other teachers for social events. Did she leave anything behind? Any personal belongings? Neema asked. Mrs. Kim disappears into the back office and returns with a small cardboard box. Inside are mundane items: sheet music, a metronome, a thermos. But at the bottom, wrapped in silk cloth, is a photograph. The image shows a much younger Yuki standing beside Min-jae in what appears to be Seoul. They're both laughing, his arm around her shoulders, her hand resting protectively over her still flat stomach. It's the only physical evidence of their relationship that has survived Hye-jin's systematic erasure. Ji-hoon stares at the photo with tears in his eyes. This is his brother as he remembers him. Joyful, hopeful, completely in love. The man in the photograph believed in happy endings, in the possibility of building a life with the woman he loved and the child they'd created together. She came back for this 2 nights ago, Mrs. Kim continues. Very late, after the school was closed. She had keys because I trusted her. She took the photograph and left an envelope for me. The envelope contains $500 in cash and a note written in Korean. Soyeon translates. Thank you for giving me a place to exist when I couldn't remember how to live. If anyone comes asking about Hannah, tell them she no longer exists. Only Yuki remains. The message is clear. She's reclaiming her original identity, preparing to step out of the shadows and face whatever consequences await. But where would a traumatized woman with limited resources and no family support go when she's ready to tell the truth? The media, Neema realizes suddenly. If she wants to expose Hye-jin, she needs protection that only public attention can provide. Somewhere she can tell her story safely, where harming her would create more problems than it solves. Hyun nods slowly. The Korean-American press would be interested in a story this explosive. Family scandals involving the business elite always generate significant coverage. But which outlet would she trust? Hyun asks. The answer comes from an unexpected source. As they leave the music school, Neema's phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. If you want the truth about Min Jae, meet me at the Flushing Meadows Corona Park, near the Unisphere. Come alone and come now. Yuki, Seoyeon says immediately. It's a trap, Ji-hoon warns. My mother could have forced her to send that message. Or Yuki could be ready to tell her story to the people who have the most reason to listen, Neema counters. She knows we've been looking for her. Maybe she's decided it's time to stop running. Ji-hoon studies the message, noting the specificity of the location. The park is public but has quiet areas, offering both safety and privacy for a conversation that could reshape multiple lives. I'm going, Neema decides. Not alone, Ji-hoon says firmly. She asked for me alone. If we want her trust, we need to respect her terms. And if it is a trap, if my mother's people are using Yuki to get to you, Neema looks at him steadily. Then we'll learn exactly how far Hye-jin is willing to go to protect her secrets. And we'll make sure the whole world learns it too. As she heads toward Flushing Meadows, Neema doesn't know that Yuki isn't the only person waiting for her at the park, or that Hye-jin has decided that some conversations are too dangerous to be allowed to happen. The Unisphere stands against the afternoon sky like a skeletal planet, its steel structure representing global unity, while Neema walks toward a conversation that might tear a family apart. The park is moderately crowded with joggers and families, providing witnesses without preventing private conversation. Yuki is smaller than she appeared in the photographs, a woman diminished by years of hiding, but with an intensity in her dark eyes that speaks of decisions finally made. She wears a simple black coat and carries a worn messenger bag clutched tightly against her chest. Miss Odiambo, she says in careful English. Thank you for coming alone. Thank you for trusting me, Neema replies, settling onto the bench beside her. I know this must be difficult. Difficult was 6 years of silence. This is necessary. Yuki's voice is soft but steady. Your friend, the woman with the red hair. Is she alive? Yes, but she's unconscious. The doctors say she'll recover, but it will take time. Yuki nods, her expression pained. I am sorry. I should have spoken sooner, before anyone was hurt. But I was afraid. Mrs. Park made fear seem like wisdom for so long. What really happened 6 years ago? Neema asks gently. Yuki is quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing the edge of her bag. When she speaks, her voice carries the weight of grief that has never been properly mourned. Min Jae and I were going to run away together, to Canada where Mrs. Park's influence couldn't reach us. We had saved money, applied for visas, planned everything carefully. I was 3 months pregnant, just beginning to show. She pauses, and Neema sees tears gathering in her eyes. But Mrs. Park discovered our plans. She came to see me while Min-jae was in a meeting he couldn't avoid. She offered me money, enough to disappear to start over somewhere far away. She said Min-jae would forget me eventually, that he was young and would find someone more suitable when his responsibilities as heir became clear. What did you tell her? I told her that I loved Min-jae, that he loved me, and that our baby deserved to have both parents. Yuki's voice hardens. She laughed. She said that illegitimate children of unsuitable women don't deserve anything except to be hidden away where they can't embarrass their families. The cruelty of Hyejine's words makes Neema's stomach turn. To reduce a pregnancy to an embarrassment, a child to a liability. I refused her money and told her that Min-jae and I were leaving Korea the next night. She seemed to accept this, even wished me luck. I thought perhaps she had realized that fighting us would only push Min-jae further away. But she hadn't accepted it, Neema guesses. No. The next evening, Min-jae picked me up on his motorcycle. We were driving to Incheon to catch a flight, being so careful. But there was another vehicle following us. A black SUV, just like the one Mrs. Park always used. We thought it was coincidence at first, but when Min-jae changed routes, it changed too. Yuki stops, her breathing becoming labored. Neema can see that reliving this memory is physically painful. Min-jae was trying to lose them, driving faster, taking turns that were dangerous. The other vehicle didn't force us off the road. It just kept following, keeping pressure on us. Min-jae pulled over finally. He said he wouldn't risk my life or the baby's life in a chase. He said he would call his mother and end this confrontation. The phone call, Neema says quietly. I could only hear his side of the conversation, but it was terrible. He was pleading with her, then arguing, then becoming more and more upset. Finally he was crying. I had never seen Min-jae cry. Yuki reaches into her bag and pulls out an old phone. Its screen cracked but apparently functional. I recorded the conversation. I knew Mrs. Park would deny whatever she said, and I wanted proof of how she treated her own son. Neema's heart pounds. Do you still have the recording? Yes. Would you like to hear what Park Hye-jin said to make her son drive into a bridge support with a woman he loved and his unborn child? The question hangs in the air like a blade. Neema knows that whatever is on that phone will change everything. Not just her understanding of Hye-jin's capacity for cruelty, but the entire foundation of Ji-hoon's relationship with his mother. Play it, she says quietly. Yuki's thumb hovers over the play button, and for a moment, Neema sees not the traumatized woman she's become, but the young musician who fell in love with Min-jae and dreamed of building a life with him in another country. The recording begins to play, and the voice that emerges is unmistakably Hye-jin's. Though stripped of the composed elegance, this is rage wielding words like weapons. You foolish, selfish boy. Do you think love excuses the destruction of everything your father and I built? Do you think your momentary happiness is worth 35,000 jobs? Min-jae's voice, younger, more desperate than Ji-hoon's but recognizably similar. Mother, please. Yuki and I can make this work. We don't need to be in Seoul. I can manage the international operations from Toronto. While you parade your pregnant girlfriend around business circles. While our competitors whisper about the Park heir who abandoned his responsibilities for a woman who trapped him with pregnancy. The accusation is venomous. Min-jae's voice becomes strained. She didn't trap me. I love her. We planned this baby together. You planned nothing. You're 24 years old and thinking with hormones instead of sense. That girl saw an opportunity to secure her future through you. And you were fool enough to believe it was love. Mother, stop. You don't know her. You don't understand what we mean to each other. Hye-jin's laugh is bitter, cold. I know enough. I know she comes from nothing, has nothing to offer our family except scandal. I know that bastard child she's carrying will never be acknowledged as a true Park heir. And I know that if you proceed with this escape plan, you will be dead to me. The silence that follows is devastating. Min-jae's breathing is audible, ragged with emotion. Financially, socially, personally. I will remove you from the company, disinherit you completely, ensure that no business in Korea or Japan will employ you. Your visa applications will be mysteriously delayed or denied. Your bank accounts will be frozen. And when that girl realizes you have nothing left to offer her except poverty and struggle, she will leave you for someone who can actually provide for her and her child. You would destroy me to prevent me from being happy. I would save you from destroying yourself. This infatuation will pass, Min-jae. They always do. But the consequences of acting on it will follow you forever. Min-jae's voice when it comes again is barely a whisper. What if I choose her anyway? Then you choose to lose everything else. Your brother will become sole heir to Park Technologies. Your father's legacy will pass to Ji-hoon alone. And when you're struggling to support a family on whatever job you can find in Canada, remember that you had the choice to be responsible. The call continues for several more minutes, with Hyejin systematically dismantling every argument, every plan, every dream Min-jae has nurtured. She reveals intimate knowledge of their escape route, their financial preparations, even their intended destination. Her network had been tracking them for weeks. The recording ends with Min-jae's voice, hollow and defeated. I understand, mother. But he didn't bring Yuki home. Instead, he drove them toward the bridge, choosing death over the impossible choice between love and family loyalty. Yuki stops the playback and sits in silence, tears streaming down her face. Neema feels nauseated by what she's heard, not just Hyejin's cruelty, but the systematic way she trapped her own son until the only escape seemed to be no escape at all. He didn't intend to kill us, Yuki says quietly. I don't think he even intended to kill himself. He was just broken, crying, saying he couldn't choose between me and his family. When I saw the bridge support ahead, I tried to grab the handlebars, but it was too late. You survived because you fought, Neema realizes. I survived because he threw his body over mine in the last second. Even dying, Min-jae protected me and our baby. She touches her stomach reflexively. But the impact, I lost everything that mattered. And Mrs. Park made sure I lost it quietly. The full horror of Hyejin's actions becomes clear. She hadn't just covered up a suicide. She'd orchestrated the circumstances that made suicide seem like the only option, then silenced the survivor who could testify to her manipulation. Why are you telling me this now? Neema asked. Because Mrs. Park is doing it again. Different son, different woman, but the same tactics. She will destroy Ji-hoon's happiness the same way she destroyed Min-jae's. And she will convince herself she's being protective rather than controlling. Yuki reaches into her bag again and pulls out a small digital recorder. Newer technology, clearly purchased recently. I've made copies of everything. The phone recording, my medical records from the hospital, documentation of the money transfers, even photographs of my injuries. If something happens to me, if I disappear like the others, these recordings will be sent automatically to every major news outlet in Korea and America. Others? Neema asked. The nurse who helped your friend research my case. The journalist in Seoul who was investigating the accident. Anyone who gets too close to the truth about Min-jae's death finds their life becoming very complicated very quickly. Hyejin's reach is more extensive than any of them realized. She's not just silencing individual threats. She's maintaining an entire surveillance network. What do you want from me? Neema asked. Help me tell this story properly. Your friend was investigating for you, but she's not the storyteller. You are. You understand how to make people see beyond the wealth and power to the human cost. It's a profound request, not just to expose Hyejin's crimes, but to give voice to Min-jae's story, to honor the love that Hyejin tried to erase. And Ji-hoon, he needs to hear this recording too, Yuki continues. He needs to understand that his mother's love is conditional, controlling, ultimately destructive. He needs to know what she's capable of before she does to him what she did to Min-jae. As they sit in the shadow of the Unisphere, both women know that the war for Ji-hoon's heart and his life is about to escalate beyond anything Hyejin has faced before. Neema stands with Yuki, preparing to bring this evidence to Ji-hoon, when black SUVs suddenly pull up on multiple sides of the park. Men in dark suits emerge, moving with coordinated precision toward their position. "Run," Yuki whispers urgently, pressing the digital recorder into Neema's hands. "Get this to Ji-hoon. Tell him the truth. Don't let her erase another love story." Before Neema can protest, Yuki disappears into the crowd with practiced ease, a woman who has spent 6 years learning how to vanish. Neema clutches the recorder and runs in the opposite direction, her heart pounding as she realizes that Hyejine's patience has finally run out. The war has begun in earnest, and the next move will determine whether love or control wins this generation's battle. Ji-hoon stands in his mother's penthouse 4 hours later, the weight of Yuki's recording burning like acid in his chest. Hyejin sits behind her desk, reviewing reports as if this were any ordinary evening. But he can see the tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers grip her pen too tightly. "You've been busy today," she says without looking up. "Meeting with lawyers, spending time with people who aren't good for you. I've been learning the truth about Min-jae's death." Now she raises her eyes, and the calculation in them is sharper than he's ever seen it. "And what truth is that?" Ji-hoon places the digital recorder on her desk. The small device sits between them like a loaded weapon, its presence immediately understood. "The truth that you murdered your own son," Ji-hoon says quietly. Hyejine's expression doesn't change, but her hand stills on the pen. "That's a very serious accusation. It's also accurate. I've heard the phone call, Mother. I've heard you systematically destroy every option Min-jae had except death, then act surprised when he chose it. You heard one side of a conversation taken out of context by a traumatized woman looking for someone to blame for her loss." Hyejine's voice remains steady, but he notices she doesn't deny the recording's authenticity. "I heard you threaten to destroy him financially, socially, personally if he chose love over family obligation. I heard you call his unborn child illegitimate and his girlfriend a gold digger. I heard you make suicide seem like the only escape from the trap you'd constructed around his life." Hyejin sets down her pen and looks at him directly. "I heard a mother trying to save her son from a catastrophic mistake that would have ruined not just his life but the lives of thousands of people who depend on our family's decisions. Sometimes love requires difficult choices, Mother. Sometimes love requires letting the people we care about make their own choices, even when we disagree with them. Even when those choices destroy everything we've worked to build." "Yes," he says firmly. "Even then." Hyejin rises from her chair and moves to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Her reflection in the glass looks older than her 60 years, worn by the weight of secrets carried alone. "Do you know what it was like," she says quietly, "to build Park Technologies from the small electronics company your grandfather left us? To fight for respect in boardrooms full of men who thought a woman had no business making corporate decisions. To sacrifice my own dreams, my own happiness, everything I wanted for myself to ensure my children would inherit something worthy of their potential. I know it was difficult. Difficult." She turns to face him, and for the first time her composure cracks completely. "I gave up the man I loved to marry your father because it was a strategic alliance that would secure our family's future. I spent 30 years in a loveless marriage, playing the perfect corporate wife, entertaining clients and smiling at events while dying inside. Everything I sacrificed was for you and Min-jae." The admission hits him like a physical blow. His parents' marriage had always seemed cordial but distant. He'd never suspected the depth of his mother's personal sacrifice. So when Min-jae wanted to throw it all away for a girl who couldn't contribute to our legacy, yes, I fought him. When he was willing to jeopardize 35,000 jobs for his personal happiness, yes, I tried to make him see reason. And when he chose to die rather than live with the weight of responsibility, I made sure his death wouldn't be in vain. By silencing Yuki. By covering up the circumstances. By pretending his death was an accident instead of the result of your manipulation. By protecting this family's ability to continue supporting the people who depend on us." Hyejin moves back to her desk, her hands shaking slightly as she pours herself water. Yuki's testimony would have destroyed Park Technologies, cost thousands of people their jobs, and accomplished nothing except satisfying her need for revenge. She lost her child, mother. She lost the man she loved. And you paid her to disappear because the truth was inconvenient. I've lived with the guilt of Min Jae's death every day for 6 years, Ji-hoon. Do you think I don't know my methods were brutal? Do you think I don't wish I could have found another way? But you're doing it again with me, with Neema. You're using the same tactics that killed Min Jae. Because I can't lose another son. The words come out raw, desperate. I can't bury another child because I failed to protect him from his own poor judgment. So you'll destroy my happiness to preserve my life? If necessary, yes. The honesty is brutal but complete. Hygiene isn't a monster. She's a woman so traumatized by loss, so consumed by guilt, that she's willing to commit fresh cruelties to prevent what she perceives as inevitable tragedy. Ji-hoon looks at his mother, really looks at her, and sees not the composed corporate matriarch, but a grieving parent who has convinced herself that love is the enemy of safety. Mother, he says gently, I'm not Min Jae and Neema isn't Yuki. We're not going to run away or make desperate choices or let family pressure drive us to tragedy. We're going to find a way to honor both love and responsibility, even if it's difficult. And if you can't, if choosing her means losing everything else, then I'll live with the consequences of my own decisions, not die from the weight of yours. Hygiene stares at him for a long moment, calculating, weighing options, trying to determine how far she can push before losing him entirely. The recording, she says finally. What do you intend to do with it? That depends on what you intend to do about Neema. They face each other across the office that has been the center of Hygiene's power for decades. Two people who love each other but define love in completely different ways. Some battles aren't worth winning if victory costs you everything you were fighting to protect, Ji-hoon says quietly. But Hygiene has never learned how to surrender gracefully. And some lessons can only be taught through consequences, she replies. The standoff continues as the Manhattan skyline glitters outside, both of them knowing that what happens next will reshape their family forever. I'm going to marry her, mother, Ji-hoon says finally. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. And you have a choice. You can be part of our lives, part of our family, or you can be the cautionary tale we tell our children about what happens when control becomes more important than connection. Hygiene's face goes pale. You would cut me out of your life. I would choose the woman who makes me want to live over the parent who makes me afraid to love. Yes. The ultimatum hangs between them like a chasm. Hygiene has always assumed that, ultimately, family loyalty would trump romantic love. That Ji-hoon, like her, would choose duty over desire when forced to decide. But she's miscalculated. Because the son standing before her isn't the obedient heir she's cultivated. He's a man who has learned from his brother's tragedy that some cages are too small for the human heart to survive. What about Yuki? Hygiene asks quietly. What about the recording and the evidence and all the carefully buried secrets? Yuki wants peace, not revenge. She wants acknowledgement, not destruction. If you can give her that, if you can publicly acknowledge Min Jae's relationship with her, acknowledge the grandchild you lost, and release her from the silence you bought, then the recording stays private. Between us. And if I refuse, then Neema writes the story. And the world learns exactly what Park Hygiene is capable of when her children dare to choose their own happiness. It's a gamble, offering his mother a path to redemption rather than simply destroying her. But Ji-hoon understands that some victories require mercy, not conquest. Hygiene sits heavily in her chair, suddenly looking every one of her 60 years. For the first time, he sees the mask slip completely, revealing not the corporate warrior, but a mother who has been terrified for so long that she's forgotten how to trust. I don't know how to do this, she admits quietly. I don't know how to let you choose your own life when every instinct I have screams that I need to protect you. Then learn, Ji-hoon says gently. Learn by watching us build something that honors both our love and our responsibilities. Learn by seeing that happiness doesn't require destroying everything you've built. The silence that follows is heavy with possibility. The chance for healing, for growth, for a family to reshape itself around love rather than control. "I'll meet with Yuki," Hygiene says finally. "I'll acknowledge what happened, what I did, what we all lost. I'll release her from the obligation to remain silent. And Neema." Hygiene's smile is tired but genuine. "Bring her to dinner tomorrow night. Properly. Let me meet the woman who has given my son the courage to stand up to me. It's not a warm embrace, but it's a beginning. The acknowledgement that some battles are won not through domination but through the courage to surrender control." As Ji-hoon leaves his mother's penthouse, he doesn't know that Neema is already planning their future. Not despite the challenges they've faced, but because of them. Some love stories are worth every scar they create in the process of becoming real. The rooftop terrace of the Seoul Park Technologies headquarters offers a panoramic view of the city where Ji-hoon's grandfather first dreamed of building something lasting. Neema stands beside the glass railing, watching the sunset over Gangnam District while servers prepare for the company's annual celebration. A tradition spanning 5 decades, but this year including guests who would have been unimaginable to previous generations. Yuki arrives first, her artwork now displayed in galleries in both Seoul and New York. Her therapy practice serving other women who have experienced traumatic loss. She carries herself with quiet confidence, no longer the haunted woman hiding in Queens, but someone who has transformed her pain into purpose. "How does it feel to be back here?" Neema asks, gesturing toward the city spread below them. "Like coming home to a place I never thought I'd be welcome again," Yuki replies. "But also like discovering that home was inside me all along, waiting for me to be brave enough to claim it." Hygiene joins them, wearing traditional Korean hanbok for the formal ceremony, but moving with the easy grace of someone who has learned to balance respect for tradition with openness to change. Her relationship with Neema has evolved into something resembling friendship, mutual respect built on shared commitment to Ji-hoon's happiness and the family's well-being. "The documentary crew will arrive soon," Hygiene informs them. "Are you prepared for questions about cultural integration and international business relationships?" "As prepared as anyone can be to have their love story analyzed for educational television," Neema laughs. The documentary, a collaboration between Korean Public Broadcasting and American PBS, explores their relationship as a case study in successful cross-cultural romance, focusing on the challenges they've navigated and the strategies they've developed for honoring both Nigerian individuality and Korean family loyalty. Ji-hoon appears with Seo-yeon and Maya, the latter carrying an advance copy of Neema's latest exhibition catalogue. The show, which opened last month at the Seoul Museum of Modern Art, has become an international success by weaving their real experiences into visual narratives that explore love, loss, forgiveness, and the courage required to build bridges between different worlds. "The Korea Times Review is incredible," Maya announces. "They're calling it a masterpiece of emotional intelligence that transcends cultural boundaries to reveal universal truths about the human capacity for growth and connection." And the New York Times called it a love story that doubles as a guide for navigating family expectations, cultural differences, and the delicate balance between honoring tradition and embracing change. Seo-yeon adds. Grandfather Park approaches them slowly, his advanced age evident in his careful steps, but his mind still sharp enough to offer strategic advice that shapes company policy. At 93, he has witnessed Korea's transformation from war-torn nation to global power, and he views Neema's integration into their family as part of that continuing evolution. "Miss Odiambo," he says in careful English, "I have been studying your exhibition. You create art about our family with great understanding and respect." "Thank you, grandfather. That means everything to me. You have given our Ji-hoon something I was beginning to fear he would never find, joy that comes from being known completely and loved anyway. This is a rare gift in any culture." The formal ceremony begins as the sun completes its descent, with Hygiene offering remarks in Korean that are simultaneously translated for international guests. She speaks about the evolution of family businesses, the importance of maintaining cultural identity while embracing global perspectives, and the unexpected ways that love can strengthen rather than threaten family legacies. But the most meaningful moment comes when Ji-hoon takes the microphone, speaking first in Korean to honor his heritage, then in English to include Neema completely. "1 year ago I thought I understood what success looked like. Meeting expectations, fulfilling obligations, maintaining traditions. But I learned that true success means having the courage to write your own definition of happiness, even when it challenges everything you thought you knew about yourself." He finds Neema in the crowd, and his smile carries the same recognition she saw across that restaurant table 14 months ago, the certainty that he has found home in another person. Love doesn't diminish responsibility, it expands it. It doesn't weaken family bonds, it creates new ones. And it doesn't require choosing between personal happiness and cultural loyalty. It finds ways to honor both. As applause fills the evening air and Seoul's lights begin to twinkle below them, Neema understands that their story has become larger than their individual romance. They've become a model for other couples navigating similar challenges, proof that love strong enough to survive family opposition, cultural differences, and public scrutiny is also strong enough to transform everyone it touches. Later, as the celebration continues around them, Ji-hoon takes Neema's hand and leads her to a quiet corner of the terrace. "I have something for you," he says, producing a small velvet box that makes her heart stop. "Ji-hoon, before you panic," he interrupts gently. "This isn't a proposal. It's a promise." Inside the box is a ring unlike anything she's ever seen. A vintage silver band set with a single perfect sapphire, elegant and timeless but distinctly unique. "It belonged to my great-grandmother, the woman who helped build Park Technologies alongside her husband when they had nothing but hope and determination. She wore it through every challenge, every triumph, every moment when she had to choose between safety and the possibility of something extraordinary." He takes the ring from the box and slides it onto her right hand. Not an engagement ring, but something more personal and meaningful. "Someday when we're both ready, I'll ask you to marry me properly. But tonight I want you to know that you already have my promise. To choose you every day, to fight for us when things get difficult, and to build something together that honors both of our dreams." Neema looks down at the ring, feeling the weight of its history and the promise it represents. This isn't just jewelry. It's a symbol of her integration into a family legacy. Her acceptance as someone worthy of carrying forward traditions while also transforming them. "I love you, Park Ji-hoon," she says quietly. "I love you, Neema Odiambo," he replies. "And I love who we are together." As they stand together on the rooftop where his family's dreams first took shape, surrounded by the people who have witnessed their journey from strangers to partners to something approaching destiny, both of them understand that the best love stories don't end with declarations or ceremonies. They begin there, with two people choosing each other again and again, building something beautiful enough to last and strong enough to weather whatever challenges tomorrow might bring. Sometimes home isn't a place at all. Sometimes it's simply the person whose hand you want to hold while you figure out how to build a life worth living, one choice at a time. The Seoul skyline glitters beneath them like a promise, and Neema knows that this, standing beside Ji-hoon with his family's blessing, Yuki's forgiveness and Maya's friendship, this is what it means to belong everywhere because you've finally learned to belong to yourself first. The cameras capture the moment, but they can't capture the feeling. The absolute certainty that love like this, love that survives family wars and cultural divides and the weight of buried secrets, is the kind that changes not just individuals but entire family legacies. And as Jin watches her son with Neema, she finally understands what she couldn't see when Min-jae was alive. That sometimes the greatest act of love isn't protection, but permission. Permission to choose, to risk, to build something new while honoring what came before. The celebration continues into the night, Seoul's lights spreading below them like stars, and two families that once seemed impossible to unite discover that the strongest bridges are built not from compromise, but from the courage to see each other's humanity beneath the surface differences. If this story of courage and connection moved you, subscribe to join the journey. Because some love stories deserve to be shared across all borders, and some families are brave enough to grow large enough to hold them all.